Chapter 1875. External Chapter, Jiang Lian. This life chapter, Jiang Lian was known as the first prince. The person she respected the most was the current emperor, her mother, Jiang Pengji. The person she respected next was the grand tutor, Wuxia, who seemed to have an ambiguous relationship with her mother and was suspected to be her biological father. The person he liked the most was his twin sister, the second princess, Jiang Yan. The second person he liked was the youngest son of boss Qiguan's family, little Langjun Qiguan Shi. Other than the four people mentioned above, the one she was closer to was her favorite playmate, Nan Nan. It was rumored that Nan Nan was the eldest wife of Grand Tutor Wei Xi's family, an iron-eating beast who could not grow up but had a long life. The above was a simple introduction of the people around Jiang Lian. Even though she was born to be favored by the heavens, she still had her own troubles. She seems like a slacker. QAQ, what a cruel reality. Her entire family was a straight-A student, but she was just a slacker. It was not that Jiang Lian's studies were bad, but with the requirements of the crown prince, her learning ability was not as good as expected. Thinking of this, Princess Jiang Lian looked sad. Although the grand tutor and other teachers would not reprimand her because she was the crown prince and the future empress, as her subjects, they had no right to punish Jiang Lian. However, weren't a few study companions used to take the blame? Take the blame for the crown prince. The young Qiguan Shi was punished the most, and most of the time, he was the one who asked for it. Your Highness, I'm fine. Qiguan Shi, who was chosen to be the study companion of the crown prince at the age of 5, consoled the first prince with a serious expression. Because of Jiang Lian, his palm was slapped by the old teacher who was teaching him. His right palm was red. Actually, the headmaster did not hit him too hard. After all, Qiguan Shui was Qiguan Rank's youngest son. Ordinary people could not afford to offend him, but he looked pathetic. Jiang Lian pursed her lips, still feeling very uncomfortable. How would he be able to give lectures in front of the pavilion in the future if his studies were not good? She also wanted to study hard, but her learning speed was not fast. There was always a gap between her and the grand tutor's expectations. Jiang Lian even suspected that she was too weak. Was she born stupid and unable to be educated? Could a mediocre person like him really live up to his mother's expectations and manage the world? Occasionally, when she couldn't sleep, she would have a thought when she tossed and turned in bed. Why don't I let my younger sister do it? My younger sister can do it better. Although they were born in the royal family, Jiang Lian had a good relationship with her younger sister. Since they were young, they had no desire to fight for power. Jiang Lian simply felt that her talent was not as good as her younger sister's. If her mother focused all her energy on her younger sister, it would be much easier for her to cultivate her. You've been beaten red, yet you say you're fine. Qiguan Shi's face was as fair as jade, and she had been beautiful since she was a child. Jiang Lian was the one who requested for him to be the study companion of the crown prince, and his father happily sent him to the palace. Under the teachings of his father, Qiguan Rang, Qiguan Yan had always kept one thing in mind: his first highness was the most important and he had to be loyal to him for life. Before becoming her study partner, Qiguan Shi had interacted with Jiang Lian a few times. It was said that when he was 1 month old, this little prince had carried him and invited him to stay in the palace for a few days. Of course, Qiguan Shi did not remember this. But he knew that this young but steady highness was a very likable person. His only shortcoming was that his academic performance was not very good, and he often punished his study companions. However, Qiguan Shi did not think that this was a shortcoming. At most, it showed that she was not good at studying. No matter how good the emperor's academic performance was, he would not go to the imperial examinations. His first highness only needed to learn how to be a qualified emperor who could work for the welfare of the people. Then, she would be successful and qualified. Throughout history, most emperors would brag about how smart and knowledgeable they were. It was not difficult to learn these things, but how many emperors could still remember the words of the saints after becoming emperors? Even if the emperor's academic performance was excellent, he would not be able to let the people live a good life and would still be reviled by his descendants. When Qiguanshi used a serious tone to comfort Jiang Lian and spoke logically, Jiang Lian could not help but burst out laughing. "Did Qiguanshi teach you to say these words?" Qiguanshi nodded. "Indeed, father often talks about them." It was no secret that Jiang Lian's academic performance was poor, and some of the ministers had been worried about her for a while. His First Highness's studies were mediocre, while his Second Highness was lazy and did not strive to improve. Why would the outstanding emperor give birth to such an ordinary daughter? If the twins had an ordinary background, the ministers could still find an excuse to complain that the boy's talent was too poor and that he was a burden to the emperor. However, when Jiang Lian and the twins were born, they were accompanied by auspicious signs and the reincarnation of Zi Wei. The ministers could only swallow their complaints. Qiguan Rang used to be one of them. He became bald because of the crown prince. However, he soon realized that he was being too stubborn. There was no need for a crown prince to learn better than a great Confucian scholar. She only needed to know that there was such a thing and learn it comprehensively so that she would not be fooled. One could never be too old to learn. She was only a few years old, and she would have plenty of time to learn slowly in the future. Compared to the other geniuses, Jiang Lian's academic performance could only be described as mediocre. However, this crown prince had the qualities of an excellent heir. She had her own opinions on how to judge and use people. The rarest thing about her was her temperament. She was neither arrogant nor impetuous, modest and gentle, but not weak. Jiang Lian was a very patient person. This could be seen from the time when Jiang Lian followed Yan Lin to the south to punish corruption and cheating cases at the age of 10. Although she was young, her actions were frighteningly steady. With Yan Lin teaching her how to set up schemes, her mind was so complicated that others could not see through her. She was full of schemes. Qiguan Rang was speechless. His Majesty was a person who wrote arrogance on his face. Now that he was older, he had to restrain himself. The second prince could not wait to carve the word lazy on his face. He did not have much of a presence since he was young. The first prince, she had an honest face. On the surface, the word harmless was written on her face. When she cut open her stomach, it was full of black liquid. How did the honest and lovely first prince of the past become a scheming smiling tiger in the blink of an eye? Did she grow up in a bad way? Qiguan Rang and the other old ministers expressed their concern. But this is good. There are many civil and military officials in the court who are easy to deal with. If the first prince does not learn to be as smart as his Majesty, how can he control the ministers? Qiguan Rang and Fengzhen played chess. Occasionally, the two princes were mentioned. Naturally, there was a lot of discussion. Although the first prince did not have much talent in learning, his practical ability was top-notch. After he officially entered the court at the age of 13, every case he handled was praised as beautiful. This made the old ministers feel much more at ease. It was settled. Fengzhen said, "I feel that the second prince is more unfathomable." The second prince was synonymous with lazy. She did not work hard, but no one could say that she was incompetent. From Fengzhen's point of view, the second prince seemed to be hiding her strength and biding her time. It also seemed like she was hiding to avoid arousing suspicion. At first, they were worried like everyone else. Worried about what? They were worried that the two princes would start a fight for the throne when they came of age. Not long after, the first prince was appointed as the heir apparent, and the second prince was conferred the title of a king. The second prince even took the initiative to ask for the title of virtuous. More than once, she expressed in public that her lifelong wish was to assist her elder sister. To be honest, the relationship between the two sisters was abnormal. It also made Fengzhen wonder if there was some conspiracy behind such a harmonious relationship between the royal family. Throughout history, were there any lack of quarrels between brothers and fratricidal strife? His Majesty only had 2 children. If one of them was killed, the other would be the next emperor. How could the 2 of them be indifferent to such a great temptation? The second prince protected the first prince in all ways, and the first prince pampered the second prince in all ways. Every time, she looked like she was saying, "You can say what's wrong with me, I can listen humbly and change seriously, but you can't say anything bad about my sister." The first prince had great self-restraint, but if anyone said anything bad about her sister, she would attack them without hesitation. As Fengzhen watched the situation unfold, he was a little worried that the imperial family was about to have a scandalous scandal. Until, the second prince had just come of age, but she had already taken away his cute youngest son, Fengyu. Fengzhen was finally relieved. Great, the second prince was still a man. She was not gay. Something didn't seem right? Qiguan Rang had the same feeling as Fengzhen. Fengzhen, the prodigal son, could be deceived by Fengyu for a while, but Qiguan Rang was very smart. He quickly realized that something was wrong with his son. On the day that he realized something was wrong, Qiguan Rang returned home with a gloomy face. He asked for the family discipline and openly waited for his unfilial son to come home. Qiguan Weisher was scared when she saw this. What happened to Ji-er? His eldest son and several daughters were all serving as officials elsewhere. The only one by his side was his youngest son, Qiguan Shi. Qiguan Rang's sudden anger must have something to do with his youngest son. This unfilial son. He had led the crown prince astray. Even 10,000 deaths would not be enough to atone for his crime. Qiguan Weisher was frightened by this situation. She thought that her son was involved in the rebellion. After waiting for an hour in fear, Qiguan Shi came back to see his old father with an ashen face. He was startled for a moment, then immediately understood something. The father and son went to the study and dismissed the servants. After confirming that there were no eavesdroppers, Qiguan Rang angrily reprimanded his son. "Who instructed you to seduce the emperor?" Qiguan Shi was speechless. Was it his fault that he was good-looking? "Father, I don't understand. When did I seduce the emperor?" Qiguan Rang felt that he needed some medicine. "How dare you say that you didn't do anything about you and the first prince?" Qiguan Shi said, "The first prince is the emperor, and I am the subject. How can there be a subject who seduces the emperor?" Qiguan Shi said calmly, "Her Highness and I are devoted to each other. Although we are the emperor and the subject, I have never misled Her Highness into doing anything wrong." Qiguan Rang said, "Her Highness is young. She doesn't know the depth of the matter. How can you not?" Qiguan Shi was speechless. Her Highness was 3 years older than him. However, even if he reminded his father would have other excuses. He was probably a fake father. The atmosphere between the father and son was a little stiff. Qiguan Shi said hesitantly, "Why can't I?" "Why not?" Qiguan Shi said, "Father taught me to be loyal to the emperor since I was young. I dare not forget for a moment. I have been reminding myself to put Her Highness first all these years. However, after Her Highness becomes an adult, she needs someone to serve her for the sake of having children. It is very dangerous for a woman to give birth. It is hard to guarantee that the royal father does not have the ambition to usurp the throne and replace her. Why should I let Her Highness worry about such things? Bear these risks?" Qiguan Rang was a little confused. "Speak slowly and let him digest it." "What do you mean?" Qiguan Shi said, "I will be loyal to Her Highness all my life. Even if I have children with Her Highness, I will never have any disloyal thoughts of usurping the throne. After Her Highness inherits the throne, she will not have to worry about having children or being burdened by relatives. Won't she be able to focus on politics? Her son will let her have no worries." "Father, you don't trust others, but can you not trust the son you have raised? You should trust your son even more." Wouldn't it be more reassuring to hand over the important task of protecting Her Highness to someone unfamiliar and let him, Qiguanxi, do it himself? Qiguanrang was speechless. This seemed to make sense. Bulsh *t. Loyal to the emperor, Qiguanrang only wanted to beat his youngest son to death and make him back into the furnace. As expected, he should have had 2 more daughters back then. Sons and whatnot, they were born to piss him off. Qiguanxi quibbled but was still beaten by his father. Fortunately, Qiguanrang knew not to hit someone's face. Qiguanxi's face was still fine. However, Jiang Lian had been thrown by her mother since she was young and had suffered all kinds of injuries. She could see the problem with Qiguanxi at a glance. After asking, she found out that he had been beaten by his future father-in-law. How could this be? The next day, Jiang Lian secretly went to the manor to have a secret talk with Qiguanrang. The content of this secret talk was completely different from what Qiguanxi had imagined. Qiguanrang, who valued women over men for decades, did not hide his worry for his son for the first time. Since Her Highness has come personally, I know that there is no turning back. I can only shamelessly ask for a promise from Your Highness. Jiang Lian was mentally prepared to be scolded or made things difficult for the old man. Qiguanrang said, "She has a good temperament, but no one can predict what will happen in the future. I shamelessly ask for a promise from Your Highness. No matter what happens in the future, as long as she doesn't commit treason, you can allow him to return to his hometown and retire if you dislike him." Jiang Lian said, "You don't trust me?" Qiguanrang said, "This isn't a matter of trust. It's just a father's concern for his son. A married son was like spilled water." Qiguanrang would not go and break up the couple. He dared to hit Qiguanxi, but would he bear to hit eldest Prince Jiang Lian? The most important thing was that he was worried. Wei Ci was a good example to learn from. Although Wei Ci was still alive and kicking and had lived a peaceful life all these years, it was not easy to be an invisible husband. However, it wasn't easy to be this kind of invisible Fu. If he wasn't careful, he would become the target of public criticism. If Wei Ci had overstepped his boundaries, Qiguanrang would not sit idly by and do nothing. He would find a way to get rid of him. Similarly, if Qiguanxi had overstepped his boundaries, would the other officials not take action? Even the emperor could not guarantee that he would be able to protect anyone in the imperial court. Qiguanrang did not expect Jiang Lian to protect Qiguanxi. He only hoped that when something like this happened, Jiang Lian would give Qiguanxi a way out and let him stay away from battles. Jiang Lian said, "All right, I agree. In addition, if she insists, I will warn his sisters and brothers to stay away from him," Qiguanrang said calmly. "In the future, just treat him as an ordinary relative. As long as I'm here, I won't let the children have too much contact with she. Please tell she about this in detail, Your Highness. I thought about it all night and realized with some shame that I might have hurt this child back then by favoring women over boys. That's why he became biased. I only hope that he and Your Highness are sincere and not because of the pressure and obsession that I put on him." When Jiang Lian mentioned this to Qiguanxi, Qiguanxi said seriously, "It's not obsession or pressure. I just can't imagine that someone will be closer to Your Highness than I am. I can't believe that someone else will love and admire you more than I do." He could not take the risk, so he hoped that he would be the one to protect her. So that she would not have to worry about anything and become a better person. The future emperor, who would go down in history, hoped that her descendants would praise and admire her when they mentioned her. This was the greatest achievement that Qiguanxi could imagine. Jiang Lian smiled. "Yes, I know. Chapter 1876. Jiang Pengji would get used to it after a while. She treated it as a vacation. But, could they tell her before they crossed over? Could they talk about the landing spot? She closed her eyes and opened them again. She found herself in the locker room of a stranger. The door opened in the next second. It was even more awkward. Both inside and outside, a dozen men in their 20s and a red-haired woman in the locker room looked at each other. The atmosphere was a little strange. After a while, one of the extremely handsome men asked, "Who are you? How did you get into our locker room? Was he a fanatic fan or a thief? If you don't answer, we'll call for help." Jiang Pengji raised her eyebrows. The man's words seemed to be the official language of Jiang Dynasty's era. Did she cross over to the future of Jiang Dynasty's era? Jiang Pengji blinked and replied in an unpracticed language, "I don't know how I got here." The words came from the mouth of a foreign beauty with red hair, red eyes, a sexy body, and a cold temperament. It sounded more like a provocation. The man said to his companion, "Zhengzi, call the police." The young man called Zhengzi had dyed blonde hair. He was tall and healthy, and his muscles were strong. "Xiaoyang, should we call the police now?" "Yes." A strange foreign woman appearing in the locker room of the national team was reason enough to call the police. When Jiang Pengji heard their conversation, her expression cracked for a moment. "Zhengzi? Xiaoyang? Yang Tao? Yan Lin? What a coincidence." The two young men in jerseys had the same name as an old acquaintance. Jiang Pengji had lived a long life in that world, but she was too cruel to her body when she fought against the villain Tianbao. She only lived for a few years after she abdicated her throne and returned to the Federation. She didn't know what happened to other people, but Yang Tao and Yan Lin had lived a long life. When she closed her eyes in that world, they were still full of energy and went swimming every winter to exercise. Jiang Pengji was glad that the old officials of Jiang Dynasty had lived a long life, but at the same time, she was worried. None of them were easy to deal with. It was a lot of pressure for the young emperor. It had been more than 20 years since Jiang Pengji returned to the Federation. In other words, she hadn't heard the name of an old acquaintance for more than 20 years. When the two young men heard what she said, their expressions changed. "Who are you?" Jiang Pengji pointed at herself and smiled. "Me? My surname is Jiang." "Jiang." The two young men looked at each other and fell into a mysterious silence. The other teammates asked what was going on, and the young man named Xiaoyang found a passable excuse to help Jiang Pengji out of her predicament. Jiang Pengji was brought to another resting room to wait. About half an hour later, she saw the two youths again. "I'm Yan Xiaoyang and he's Yang Zhengzi. It's been years since anyone called us Yan Lin or Yang Tao." The young man called Xiaoyang looked more refined. His hair was short and black, and he had a gentle temperament. He didn't look like someone who ran on the field at all. "Who were you before? Why did he suddenly appear here? You'd better not lie, or we'll really call the police." Jiang Pengji said, "My surname is Jiang Pengji." Once again, Yan Lin and Yang Tao fell into silence. The silent atmosphere was only broken when the three of them sat in the private room of the restaurant and served the dishes. "Are you really Emperor Jiang Chen? Jiang Pengji?" Jiang Pengji had basically confirmed their identities. "Shouldn't you call me Your Majesty?" Whether it was the first or the second time, Yang Tao and Yan Lin had become her subjects, so it was normal for them to call her Your Majesty. Yan Lin curled his lips. The Jiang dynasty died a long time ago. Yang Tao laughed and teased, "The Jiang dynasty is gone, but the royal family is still there. They're still emperors with a constitutional monarchy." As the ancestor of the royal family, Jiang Pengji was addressed respectfully as, "Your Majesty, OJ13K. Are you too, reincarnated or transmigrated or," Yan Lin said, "reincarnated or transmigrated? You know quite a lot." "I was born knowing. I guess it's like you forgot to drink Meng Po's soup after reincarnation." Compared to Yan Lin, Yang Tao was more friendly. He said, "What's going on, Your Majesty? Why did you suddenly appear in the team's locker room? You gave me a fright just now. Jiang Pengji said, I don't know. I just came out of nowhere without any warning. Yang Tao asked again, then why are you dressed like this? Jiang Pengji hid some details and said vaguely, I look like this in this life. Yang Tao showed a trace of sympathy for her. He and Yan Lin were lucky. They reincarnated as neighbors, and they were even from respectable families in China. As the founding emperor of the Jiang dynasty, Jiang Pengji reincarnated as a foreigner. What kind of arrangement was that? In this era, there was no such thing as a monarch and a subject. The three of them were old friends who had known each other for decades, so they couldn't help but reminisce about the past. After a long conversation about their experiences in this life, Yang Tao and Yan Lin were completely stunned. You're saying that after your reincarnation, you entered the interstellar era? Are there holographic games? Are there interstellar tours? Yang Tao's heart ached when he heard that. Everyone was born knowing. Why was Jiang Pengji born into the interstellar era? Jiang Pengji scratched her head. There are all of them, but I don't have time to enjoy them. Yang Tao was confused. Why? Could it be that her family was poor after her reincarnation? That couldn't be. Jiang Pengji was so arrogant. She could do well in any era, right? Yan Lin noticed that Jiang Pengji was dressed in a military style. Based on his shallow understanding of the military, Jiang Pengji did not look like a regular soldier. She was a marshal of the Federation. She was a marshal of the Federation. Yang Tao asked, what's the rank of a marshal of the Federation? Jiang Pengji rested her chin on her hand. There are 10 armies under the marshal. Each army is responsible for the deployment and defense of the Federation's troops. Yang Tao was speechless. That was the end of their friendship. Everyone was born knowing, so why was she doing so well? Underscore otherwise, that was why she was the emperor in her previous life instead of Yang Tao. Under Yang Tao's strong request, Jiang Pengji showed him her wrist AI and all kinds of cool functions. Yang Tao was envious. He slumped in his chair like a salted fish. Xiaoyang, I don't want to play football and conquer the world. I want to play holographic games and be an esports god. Yan Lin was speechless. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Speaking of which, she had no idea why Yan Lin and Yang Tao were playing football. Yan Lin said, he wanted to be a swimmer, but he was poached by a football scout to be a soccer player. What about you? Yang Tao was a restless person. It was normal for him to run and jump around, but Yan Lin didn't look like he would like to play football. Yan Lin said, I'm the goalkeeper. As long as he was on the field, he would do his best to help Yang Tao defend the goal. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yan Lin face-bombed. I was so stupid. I didn't want to inherit the family business. I had to play along with him. Wasn't it good to be a domineering CEO? He wore a suit every day, appeared in financial magazines, and took over a business empire that was worth billions. But he just couldn't control his own hands and feet. In his previous life, he had been Yang Tao's nanny for 50 or 60 years. In this life, he was his neighbor and had to clean up after him. Yan Lin suspected that he had been cursed. He had become a ghost. Even if he reincarnated, he wouldn't let go of his nanny. The only good thing was, Yang Tao had a sister in this life, and she was Yan Lin's girlfriend. Jiang Pengji couldn't help but say, they're not real brothers, but they're like real brothers. Yan Lin curled his lips. Forget it. I can't even bear to look at the word brothers. She didn't know what the kids in the future thought. They wrote about Yan Lin and Yang Tao every day. They were straight men. Yan Lin couldn't help but doubt his life. Was he that gay in his previous life? Luckily, he still liked Yang Tao's sister. That was for sure. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yang Tao couldn't help but laugh. He took out his phone and searched for Jiang Pengji. Kids in this era are so funny. When Yang Tao was bored, he liked to read all kinds of novels from the Jiang dynasty. Looking at the familiar characters in the novels shouting themselves hoarse for love and saying, "How can you be so heartless, so cold, and so unreasonable?" For love, he could be happy for the whole day. It was simply a cure. The source of his happiness. Yan Lin suddenly said, "I think they gave me too little homework. I should have written more essays back then." As one of the famous people of the Jiang dynasty, Yan Lin's writing was irregular in textbooks. He read and recited the whole text. If he had known that the future would be like this, he would have written more essays and memorized them to death. Jiang Pengji took Yang Tao's phone and flipped through his bookshelf. She was silent for a long time. Yang Tao had a very good habit. He liked to categorize things. He set up a bookshelf for each protagonist. There were more than 3,000 books on the bookshelf labeled Jiang Pengji. He's so bored. If it weren't for the fact that this body was so powerful that it could send Yang Tao to the cycle of reincarnation, she would have given him a good beating. They had been together for a lifetime. Why did he like to read novels with her as the protagonist? Did he really want to see her make a fool of herself? Yan Lin said, "There's something even more idle." "What is it?" Yan Lin handed his phone to Jiang Pengji. A messaging app was opened, and there was a chat group named Jiang Chao Elderly Mutual Aid and Love Association for the Aged. A group of people were chatting away in the group. Jiang Pengji saw many familiar sock puppets. This is, as the name suggests, Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yan Lin took back his phone and sent a message. "His Majesty is here." Everyone who was chatting in the group fell into a strange silence. Which Majesty? Could it be the current Empress? Yan Lin didn't answer. "Wei Yong, your ancestor is here." Jiang Pengji looked at the group chat and fell into a long silence. "Yuanda Prince Wei Zishuan, ancestor?" Jiang Pengji? Did she really come? Yan Lin replied, "Genuine goods at fair prices. Honest to all." On this day, the Jiang Chao Elderly Mutual Aid and Love Association for the Aged exploded. Chapter 1877. Jiang Pengji looked at the group chat and couldn't help but look at Yan Lin. The people in the group. "Do you mean, they all forgot to drink Meng Po's soup?" Yan Lin's face was solemn. If hell really exists and Meng Po's soup exists, then either Meng Po neglected her duty or she sold fake medicine. Zhengze and I were born knowing each other. We met when our families visited each other with our children. Coincidentally, I found out that there were so many people I knew. The others were either the same or something triggered their memories and restored their past lives. Coincidences? Yan Lin said, "People who passed away hundreds of years ago have returned to this world." It sounds like they were possessed and talking nonsense. Zhengze and I didn't want to be estranged from our parents in this life, so we tried our best to keep it a secret and pretend that we forgot to drink Meng Po's soup. Except for our memories, we are no different from ordinary people. But it's not easy to cover up our past lives. Sooner or later, we'll find out. You found out? Yan Lin couldn't help but look proud. He raised his eyebrows. "No, we found someone else." "Who?" Yang Tao showed Jiang Pengji a photo. "Your Majesty, can you guess who they are?" Jiang Pengji took a closer look and saw a man and a woman in the photo. The man was tall and burly. According to the background of the photo, he was about 1.9 meters to 2 meters tall. He was as strong as a wall. Even though the man was wearing a well-tailored suit and leather shoes, the fierce look in his eyes made people think that he was a gangster. Beside the man stood a woman in a white strapless dress. Her makeup was exquisite. Looking at the woman's face, one sentence popped up in his mind: Even a vixen who could bring disaster to a country and people couldn't be more beautiful. Jiang Pengji looked at the possessive man in the photo and was speechless. Are they Jingtu and Huijun? Yang Tao complimented. Your Majesty, you have a good eye. Fu Wang was the grandson of a military leader. He had risked his life for many meritorious deeds at a young age. Huijun was a freshman in the finance department of a university. Coincidentally, she was asked by a relative's director to play the second female lead. She vividly played the role of a beauty who brought disaster to the country and won the Best Supporting Actress award in one fell swoop. Fu Wang had his memories since he was young, while Huijun had only remembered it midway. It was a coincidence that they had met for the first time. A female star with a flirtatious appearance had a narrow career path. If she wasn't careful, it would be easy for her to attract criticism. At that time, Huijun faced the situation of being criticized by the entire internet. The female stars who were competing with her for resources were all trying to criticize her. Not long after, Huijun became a guest on a live-stream variety show and happened to bump into Fu Wang, who was acting as a guest instructor out of boredom. Fu Wang had smacked her against the wall in front of all the cameras and said, "I've fallen in love with you at first sight. I want to marry you." Huijun had scolded him for being shameless. Fu Wang, however, said, "Men don't need face to chase after their wives. Those who do need face are all single." Hence, the focus of this episode was on Fu Wang flirting with Huijun. After filming the variety show, the two went to get their marriage certificate. All the netizens? Yang Tao excitedly pulled out another photo. Your Majesty, guess who this is? Jiang Pengji took a closer look and realized that it was a short video. The scene was probably a lecture hall. A young and beautiful girl was proposing to a man. The man looked to be in his early 30s. He wore gold-rimmed glasses and had a mature aura. Judging from the background of the video, he should be a professor. The girl was his student. Jiang Pengji couldn't guess, but she could use the elimination method to guess blindly. Huayu and Jingxian? Yang Tao gave her a thumbs up. As expected of your Majesty, you guessed correctly. Feng Jin, the old antique, insisted that he was much older than Wei Jingxian and that it was inappropriate. He forced the young lady to come to his school with her identity card and propose in front of hundreds of students. The scene was very lively. They had been married for a long time in their previous lives. Could Feng Huayu really tolerate his reincarnated wife marrying another man? I think it's pretentious. Jiang Pengji, no, she felt that he was enjoying it. Didn't she notice that the man in the video was smiling when he was proposed to? Yang Tao seemed to like this guessing game. He showed Jiang Pengji another video. In the video, the young man was hugging the safety rope and said that he was afraid of heights. He wouldn't jump down even if he was beaten to death. I still have to work on a defense plan. Big CEO, please be generous and spare a poor lawyer like me. The girl was a little older than the young man. If the young man was a fresh meat, the girl was a ripe peach. Every move she made was full of mature charm. It seemed that they were bungee jumping. Jiang Pengji couldn't figure it out. Who were they? Even Han Yu wasn't that timid. Yang Tao said, it's Han Wenbin and Mi Chu. They only remembered their previous lives after they got married. Jiang Pengji couldn't help but roll her eyes. She knew that Han Yu and Mi Chu were a married couple who didn't get married in the first place. They didn't look like a married couple at all. How did they end up together in this life? Yang Tao explained, Wenbin was a young lawyer who had just graduated not long ago. He helped someone in a lawsuit and won. Big Boss Mi took a fancy to him. Big Boss said, I can lose the lawsuit, but I have to sleep with this person. I want to sleep with him at first sight. TSK, Wenbin's face in this life is worse than in his previous life. Isn't it good to be in the entertainment circle? Why did he have to go down the road of no return? This was the story of a domineering female CEO who forced herself on a young lawyer. It originated from the lust in the court. If Han Yu went to the entertainment circle, he would probably be a sugar daddy's sugar daddy. Jiang Pengji put her hand on her forehead. Who else? Yang Tao pulled out a wedding photo from the album. Jiang Pengji recognized who they were at first sight. Han Mei and Wan Er. Did they forget to drink Meng Po's soup? Or did they buy a batch of fake Meng Po's soup? Yang Tao smiled. Isn't it obvious? I can recognize them at first sight. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Li Yun's face was exactly the same as it was in her previous life. Only a blind man could not recognize him. In this life, Li Yun was born into a martial arts family. His ancestors had a deep relationship with the Xia family of the Jiang dynasty. When he met Sheng Wanwan, she was still a 15-year-old high school student. She held it in until she was an adult before getting married. On the day of their wedding, Li Yun smiled like a fool. It was a waste of his peerless face that could make him work in the entertainment circle. Yang Tao had a lot of photos in his phone. Yang Jingrong is lucky in this life. He's the son of a coal boss. He has nothing else but money. As the son of a coal boss, Yang Si should be happy to see a rich second generation who cheats his father and flaunts his wealth. But, he had become a live stream host. His hobby had not changed even in his previous life. It was the same in her previous life. He went south in his 60s just to eat oysters. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Shameful. It was so shameful. Where's Nongqin? Yang Tao said. Yang Jingrong was forced by his family to go on a blind date after he turned 30. She met General Jiang during the blind date. They were not going on a blind date with each other. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yang Tao took out other photos and rambled on for a long time. There were dozens of people in the Jiang Dynasty Elderly Mutual Aid and Love Pension Association. Almost everyone in the Jiang Dynasty's generation was captured in one fell swoop. Jiang Pengji deeply sympathized with the current Jiang royal family. A bunch of old fellows from the same generation as their ancestors crawled back from the underworld unwillingly. How tired was that? She could not deal with them. She could only coax them like an ancestor. What did I see just now? Is it Wei Qiong? Yang Tao laughed. Wei Qiong is the prince of the current Jiang royal family. He's your descendant. There's also your old enemy Nie Liang, Nie Guangshan. He's currently teaching at Tianhua University. By the way, there's someone in the group that you must get to know. I think Her Majesty will be very interested in him. Who? Yang Tao sent a message in the group. Doting wife Professor Lu Shi, the one who bombed the tomb, come out and get beaten up. Dozens of members in the group copied the message. Jiang Pengji was speechless. What did Lu Shi do? Yang Tao said, he bombed your imperial tomb. Jiang Pengji was speechless. Yang Tao said, Your Majesty, I'm afraid you don't know that your imperial tomb is a 5-star tourist attraction in the country. We go there every year when we gather. Other gatherings usually went somewhere to sightsee, but they formed a group to visit Jiang Pengji's imperial tomb. They reminisced about the past and watched Her Majesty and a certain strange male corpse. Jiang Pengji was speechless. For all, these officials were all F***king fake. Yang Tao introduced the group of people and said regretfully, it's a pity that Zixiao and Wenjing haven't been found. Jiang Pengji snorted. Now it was her turn to show off. Jiang Pengji used the cool AI to play 2 stereoscopic projection videos. A young man with semi-long hair was bending over the table and drawing. He seemed to have noticed the gaze of the person who was secretly filming. He turned his head with a smile. Peng Peng. Yang Tao was speechless. Could this be Wei Zixiao? Jiang Pengji switched to another video. This time, the main character was a cold-looking young man. The style of his military uniform was the same as the one Jiang Pengji was wearing. "Marshal, this is the document that was delivered today. Please approve it as soon as possible." Yang Tao looked at the unfamiliar face of the young man. He was a little confused. "This was," Jiang Pengji said, "Wenjing." Yang Tao was speechless. After a while, he broke down and said, "Forget about Wei Zixiao, why can Qiguan Wenjing also reincarnate into the interstellar era?" Jiang Pengji even showed Yang Tao the video of her family. She and Wei Ci stood in the middle. Her eldest daughter, Jiang Yan, stood on the right, and her son, Wei Tsong, stood on the left. The chubby girl, Jiang Lian, happily rode on her father's neck. She smiled and showed her bare gums. Wei Ci could only smile bitterly. He grabbed her feet with one hand and supported her back with the other. Jiang Pengji's transmigration lasted for 3 days. When she saw her old friends in this life, she let go of all her burdens, sang loudly, and had a party. All the regrets of her previous life and this life were released in a party. When Jiang Pengji woke up, she returned to the familiar world. Only the images stored in the AI told her that the few days she experienced were not a dream. Jiang Pengji wiped her face and sent a message to Wei Ci. Wei Ci had just finished class. The students had not left. "Zixiao, I miss you." Wei Ci blushed when he heard that. "The students are still here." Jiang Pengji said, "I know, but I miss you." Wei Ci said, "I'll get off work and go home in a while." Jiang Pengji said, "I know, but I want to hear you say that you miss me too." Wei Ci could only say, "Yes, I've been thinking about you." The students were speechless. A few hours later, the two topics were trending. Hashtag what did we do wrong? Why does Marshall feed us dog food every few days? Hashtag the federal conspiracy to urge marriage. Hashtag. Chapter 1878. Other people retired and raised their grandchildren to dance in the square. Pei Yi retired and spent money to raise paper dolls. Before spending money, rubbish game, I don't even care about spending money. After spending money, so good. Not only can I spend money, but I can also work. Raising paper dolls can cultivate one's character and enrich one's boring life after retirement. Not only can they have feelings, but they can also. P.S. The new book is fat and ready to be slaughtered. P.S. The new book will be released on March 1st. I'll need everyone's monthly support then. Thanks, Omega. The following was the first chapter of the new book. The room was simply furnished and dark. Only the screen in the study flickered with a faint blue light. Occasionally, one could hear the beeping sound of a message notification. At that moment, light footsteps came from the kitchen and a figure gradually became clear. Beep beep beep, the message notification sounded again. That person took a step and appeared in the study like a wisp of green smoke. She was so fast that she left behind a series of afterimages. She took a sip of her freshly brewed instant drink and placed the panda mug on the study table. Her fingers slid across the virtual screen. "Pei Yi, are you there? Are you there, Pei Yi? Grandma Pei, this is an urgent matter. Don't play dead. Grandpa Pei, I'll call you Grandpa, okay? Reply when you see this message or I'll hack your AI. Pei Yi, come out, Pei Yi. I know you're online. Don't hide behind the screen and keep quiet. I know you're peeping." The time at the bottom right corner was ticking by the second. Pei Yi read through her increasingly agitated friend's message. Her expression was as calm as still water. Her friend begged her grandfather and grandmother to compromise in despair. There were more than 200 messages in a row. Pei Yi skipped over the useless chatter in the middle and went straight to the last few messages. "Grandma Pei, you're so calm. I admit defeat. I'm impressed." Her friend's attitude gradually softened. I have something to ask of you. Aren't you very free recently? Help me take care of a child. Everything can be discussed after it's done. It's not convenient for outsiders to know about this child's existence. After thinking about it, I can only ask you to take care of it. I know you don't know how to take care of children, so I specially designed an idiot-style nurturing app for the little guy. You just have to take care of him, it's completely effortless. I still have something to do, talk to you later. Friend XXX has sent you a document offline, please check it. His actions were swift, as if he was selling a hot potato. Pei Yi stared at these words and hesitated for a while. In the end, he still chose to accept it. Her posture changed from a proper sitting posture to a lazy and decadent reclining posture. She crossed her long legs and leaned against the corner of the desk, humming a popular local folk song. Downloading, installing, and opening the app. It was done in one go. A second later, the intelligence system's screen turned black with a paw sound, slowly revealing a gorgeous pink sea of stars. The sea of stars moved closer to the center of the AI screen, forming a pink vortex. Not long after, the pink vortex condensed into a cute pink heart that simulated 3 heartbeats. What's the point of designing such a flashy app for? As he spoke, the heart suddenly exploded, turning into flowing pink light that converged into 4 big words. Love and raising children, Pei Yi. Not only was the design flashy, but it was also plagiarized. Playing this kind of game would lower one's style. She casually took the snacks piled up in the corner of the study, tore open the biodegradable paper packaging, and took out potato chips to eat. As she waited, the long scene animation finally ended, and an even more flashy logo popped up. It was clearly an app that was privately made. The creator even designed a series of disclaimers for this app, requiring Pei Yi to sign the disclaimer before she could enter the game. She casually glanced at it and realized that these disclaimers were quite retarded. This game is a game that combines love and raising children. First, Zai Zai's growth is completely controlled by the player. If Zai Zai is retarded, please do not be angry. Reflect on yourself 3 times a day, find problems from yourself, and reject domestic violence. Zai Zai's growth requires the player's full participation, so please treat it seriously. Do not be lazy. Second, Zai Zai's emotions are very sensitive, please pay attention to the changes in its mood. Third, Zai Zai has made a mistake, please focus on guidance and do not use vulgarities. Fourth, once this game is activated, it will be bound for life and cannot be destroyed or discarded. Lastly, Heavenly Brain reserves the right to explain everything. Hit me if you're unhappy. Pei Yi was speechless. She wanted to buy a ticket to the central planet right now and destroy that guy's nest. Why did he have to be coquettish in front of her? Pei Yi did not look at these retarded terms in detail, she clicked agree at the end, signed her name according to the procedure, and bound the account. As the melodious background music played, the game finally began. Pei Yi casually clicked, skipping the boring tutorial for new players. Compared to the fancy animation and logo, the game interface was surprisingly simple. The screen showed a simple room, the 4 walls were all grayish-white, a closed frosted window, a closed door, a wooden table, a wooden stool, and a fancy egg on the wooden stool. There was nothing else. The egg was really fancy, with a rough count of more than 20 colors, as messy as a child's doodle. She poked the egg, and a name box popped up on the screen. Please name Zai Zai or your lover. Since it's called Zai Zai, let's call it Zai Zai. This game's setting really made her speechless. She was not a paper lover, so there was no way she would treat the paper people in the app as her partner, let alone her lover. Raising a child and a lover, wasn't it the same as raising a child and selling it? Too heavy. Underscore, smiley face angle, underscore, naming successful. After the system notification ended, 2 small words appeared on the head of the egg, Zai Zai, Pei Yi explored the functions of the various buttons, and the system prompted her to choose an ID for the account. After thinking for a moment, your Abba was born. If the egg was equipped with a title, the small words on the head would become, your Abba's Zai Zai. She poked at the various icons while studying the meaning of them. How dare they make such a simple game? It won't even make a splash on the market. Ever since Pei Yi retired from the Federal Army, she had been addicted to games. She had dabbled in action, adventure, simulation, role-playing, and casual games. Among them, she mainly played popular pay-to-win games. She had also played a few adult games, but after playing for a while, she got the hang of it and gave up. Based on her judgment, this adult app was too simple. She really couldn't summon the urge to spend money. How do I upgrade this thing? After exploring for a while, Pei Yi found a progress bar called Merit on the egg. Merit was equivalent to experience in ordinary games. There was no way to spend money at the moment, so she could only rely on her hard work. According to the growth routine, this should be the time to release $1 purchase or $6 free SR skin to scam people into spending money. There was 1 and 6. Gradually, there would be 98, 188, 348, and 648. Underscore, smiley face angle, underscore even Pei Yi had been tricked into spending tens of thousands by the game's merchants. Adult games relied on either spending money or hard work. Games that required both spending money and hard work were shameless. She had nothing now, but she had a lot of free time. She was full of hard work, so it wasn't worth it to spend money. How much merit does it need to break out of the shell? 100, 1,000, 1,000 merit? That doesn't seem to be much. Pei Yi poked around and found an important clue in the novice guide that she had just skipped. She quickly pulled out the novice guide to take a closer look. A piece of parchment was rolled up in the middle of the screen. The words at the front were still clear, but the back was stained by ink and was intermittent. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was abundant. Although immortals, humans, and demons had conflicts, the overall situation was considered peaceful. There was a vast continent in the human world. There were hundreds of countries on the continent. There was a small country with a population of less than 1 million. It was called Tanchang. The ink at the end of the 2 sentences covered several lines of words. Years later, the Empress of Tanchang gave birth. She was named Su. After that, there was another patch of ink. Pei Yi could barely see a few words. Connecting the context, it should be that something had happened to this prince named Su. She guessed that Tanchang had been destroyed by someone. After the country was destroyed, Su darkened and did something that angered the heavens and people. In the end, the heavenly Tao was furious and cast a curse. Unless Su cleared the countless negative karma on her, she would never be able to be free. In the end, Su's soul turned into this egg. Players needed to hatch the egg and accompany Su to earn merit and luck to help Su wake up. Pei Yi only had one thought after reading it: what a shoddy game background. It was a lousy setting. She could find a bunch of similar free materials at any time. After understanding the game background of the egg, Pei Yi began to study how to earn merit by clearing dungeons. Although her friend was a scammer, since she had agreed to help it raise the egg, she would raise it. She had nothing to do anyway. There was no difference between being addicted to online games and games. It could kill time. The dungeon entrance was very easy to find. There was a flashy skull button on the top right corner of the screen. The word dungeon was written on it. She clicked on it and a long roll of parchment appeared on the screen. The parchment was a little old, and the corners were a little yellowish brown. Apart from the first dungeon that was lit up, the others were locked. They were gray and could not be opened. She could only click on the dungeon introduction at the top. She almost went blind when she saw it. Why did a 70-year-old woman die tragically on the streets? Why did hundreds of sows scream every night? Why did the condoms in the convenience store get stolen? Why did the underwear in the girls' dormitory get stolen? What was the hidden reason behind the theft of the dormitory bedsheets? Who was behind the flowery youth's anus? Behind all of this, was it the distortion of human nature or the degeneration of morals? Please pay attention to this dungeon channel. Let your Abba lead us into the hearts of demons and ghosts to explore the unknown world. Curiosity made her click on it. Her survival instinct made her want to close the interface. What kind of lousy thing is this? For all, Pei felt like her IQ was being rubbed against the ground by her friend. She wanted to uninstall the game, but this lousy game was toxic. The interface actually froze at this moment. She even swiped to enter dungeon. There's such a thing? She didn't believe that her AI would even freeze when running the app, unless someone was secretly playing tricks. For example, the creator of this app. Pei locked onto the suspect, and several notifications popped up on the screen. Prepare to enter dungeon. Player, please get ready. Countdown, 3, countdown, 2, countdown, 1, enter dungeon. Have fun. The melodious sound of the game rang. Before Pei could react, her vision suddenly turned black, and she lost consciousness. Before she lost consciousness, she vaguely heard her friend's mocking laughter. All interpretation rights belong to Heavenly Brain. Hit me if you're not convinced. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.